So, we explained earlier in the Maimer about the name of Havaya and the name of Elikim. That the name of Elikim represents power of Hashem, which is connected to Memalik Kol Almim. The name of Hashem represents beyond H'tshlz because that's Hoya v'Hoya v'Yir Ke'echad, that's higher than Zman. And now the Rebbe is going to explain that this is actually connected to the avoida of Sur Meira Ba'asei Tov. Sur Meira, to staying away from Ra, and Asei Tov, doing good. Now, usually we translate that Sur Meira means don't do Avedas, don't do negatives. Asei Tov means to do mitzvahs. But the Rebbe will explain, really, in Sur Meira, when we say stay away from bad, that includes doing mitzvahs as well. Because if you don't do mitzvahs, that's Ra. That's bad, not doing mitzvahs. When we say stay away, Sur Meira, stay away, that already includes stay away from doing Avedas and also do mitzvahs. That's really what Sur Meira includes. V'asei Toiv is a stronger level. It's not just doing mitzvahs like in Sur Meira. Sur Meira, you're doing mitzvahs because you're afraid of punishment or whatever the oynesh, whatever you're worried about, whatever the yira is, it's motivated by fear. So over there, whether you're keeping and you're not violating the loisasa, or you're doing the mitzvahs, Sur Meira means you're doing it out of fear. But Va'asei Toiv means that you are working on the Toiv. It's not that you're putting in effort. You're not just doing the mitzvah. You're doing it with love. You're doing it with devotion. You're doing Asei Toiv. And therefore, that's the connection. So from the level of Elikim, which is nature, over there you have Yira Soinish. Over there you have the level of Yira. That's the Shem Elikim. That's H'tshlz. But when you do Asei Tov, that's connected, and you want to do, that's because of a higher level of devotion. Let's look inside. V'zehu hakesher d'shnei ha'avodos. This is the connection of these two services of the Sur Meira v'Asei Tov. And we're saying Sur Meira and Asei Tov, Lebeis Hashem es Elikim v'Havaya, to the two names of Elikim and Havaya. It explains. The Hine Yodua, because it's known, Shebesur Meira, when we say stay away from Ra, Nichlal Gam HaZihirus, that also includes being careful, Shaloi Laver al Mitzvah Sasei, not to violate a positive mitzvah. Not only not to do Avedas, but also not to not do a mitzvah, to violate of doing a mitzvah. The bittul mitzvahs asay hu isur. Because if you waste and don't do a positive mitzvah, that's an isur and that's an ra. So therefore, when we say stay away from ra, it includes also not to waste and not to violate, not to do a mitzvah. So what is the difference between Sur Meira and Asei Tov? If Sur Meira already tells us to be careful of the loisas as well, and also the mitzvahs, so what is the chiddush? What is the big deal about mitzvahs Asei Tov? Elo, the difference is how you're doing the mitzvahs, whether you're doing it out of yira or doing it out of ahava. Eloshe besur meira. When we talk about sur meira mikivon shaz hirus shaloi bikiyum hamitzvos. Why is he careful? His being careful in observing the mitzvahs. Who? Bipnei sheyorei laver al tzivui hamelech, because he is afraid to transgress, to violate the command of the king. So the reason he's doing the mitzvahs asay when it's sur meira is because he's worried. He doesn't want to violate the command of the king. So therefore, his mitzvahs, kiyum ha-mitzvahs shaloi, his observance of the mitzvahs, hurak ad tamo shemechuyev. It's only to the extent that he's obligated. He's afraid not to do it. He doesn't want to violate it. So he makes sure to do everything that is expected from him. So he does it, but he doesn't do extra. He doesn't do more. He doesn't go beyond. He just does everything that you need to do. V'hachidush beha'avoda, da'asei toiv, who, what's the novelty in the avoid of doing good? Is shekim ha-mitzvahs shaloihu, that his observance of mitzvahs is loy rak mipnei shehu muchrach bozeh, not only because he has to, he's forced. I have no choice, I have to do it. In order so that I don't violate the command, so I must do it, because if I don't do it, I'll be violating Hashem's command. There's a greater level when we do asay tov. Elo, be'oifen da'asiyah. He does it, he's doing it. Va'asay tov, do good. It's an action. You're into it. You do more than you have to because you're doing it because you want to do it. It's not only because it's the mitzvah of because you don't want to violate. It's because you want to do it. As he says in the Likutei Torah, that the inyan ba'asei tov, over there in Likutei Torah it says that what is the idea of asay tov? So it says, Hu shemiyageya es atzmoi. That means that he puts effort. He efforts himself. Miyageya es atzmoi b'toiro mitzvahs. He pushes himself. He forces. He makes an effort into the mitzvahs. V'ad liyigia yoser mitiva v'regilusei. To the extent that he pushes himself, he efforts more than his nature and more than he's accustomed to. Why? Because v'asei tov, doing good. It's not just not do. He's doing good. So now, because we're explaining these two differences of asay tov and sur meira, we understand the connection to the Shem Havaya and the Shem Elikim. And this is Sha'avoid of the Sur Meira. The avoid of staying away Meira Shayeches L'Shem Elikim has connected to the name Elikim. Avoid of Asay Toiv L'Shem Havaya, and the avoid of Asay Toiv is connected to the Shem Havaya. Why? The fact that the person is afraid to violate the mitzvahs of the king. Va'ad. Now he's so afraid of violating the mitzvah of the king is shemipnei shehayira shaloi, because he is so afraid. He holds back. He conquers his yetzer. He holds himself. He's afraid of Hashem, so he's going to force himself that he doesn't give in to his yetzer. Gam kishe boyer koesh. Even when his inclination is burning like a fire, but yet that level of yira that he has for the king, for Hashem, that he's afraid he's going to conquer his yetzer. Mipnei shehu yorei laver al mitzvahs hamelech, because he's afraid to violate the command of the king. So how does the person get that? Hu al yidei shemargish. That is through the person feeling Shahu Yizbarech Moshel V'Shoilit Olav. He feels that Hashem is the ruler. Hashem dominates over him. Elikim. So how does that yira work? It works because he sees Elikim. He feels Hashem's power and he's afraid of Hashem. And that is what helps him sur meirah, to stay away and not to violate and even do the good, not to violate Hashem's will. But the ha'avoida de v'asei toiv, but the service of v'asei toiv, which is shemiyageya atzmoi b'toiro mitzvos yoser mitivei uri gilusai. Over there, he forces himself, he pushes at heart of it, he works hard in Torah mitzvahs more than his nature and more than he was accustomed to. There is no fear. That's not because of fear. Because of fear, as long as he does what the king wants, so there's nothing to be afraid of. He's done what the king wants. But here, he's doing more than the nature, more than he's accustomed. That is hu al yidei gilui oir hasovev shalamayla mo'olamas. That is because the person has the revelation of the oir hasovev, which is higher than the world. Oir hasovev mo'olamas. Havaya shalamayla meteva. That is because he has the havaya, which is higher than his nature. So basically, when the person is inspired by the Shem Elikim, that gives him yira, that gives him fear, and he's not going to violate Hashem, whether it's sur meirah and asei toiv, as the Rebbe explained. But in order to do the extra, in order to do more than the nature, more than usual, that is by the person being inspired by the Shem Havaya. So that's why Havaya is connected to the level of asei toiv, and Elikim is connected to the level of sur meirah. And the Rebbe is going to explain now in Ois Gimel that there is a higher level than sur meirah v'asei toiv. Like we say in the Pasuk, it says in the Pasuk, sur meirah v'asei toiv, bakesholem v'rotfeyu. There's the level of bakesholem v'rotfeyu. That's the level of Torah. The level of Torah is even higher than both, than the level of sur meirah and asei toiv, which means it's higher than the level of sevev and memale. It's a level which connects the person with the level of atzmos, because even in the higher level, when you love Hashem and you're going more, it's still connected with the person's nature. It's takas sevev, but it's sevev kol ha'almim. It's connected to the world. And when you connect to the Eibishter through Torah, over there you become one with the Eibishter, so that it's not you loving Hashem, but Hashem is in your Torah, so you become one. Let's look inside. Gimel. Ubiur hashaychus shel ha'avoida de v'asei toiv le'oir ha'sovev beprotiyus yoser. The Rebbe is going to explain the connection of the avoida of asei toiv to the oir hasovev in more detail. So hinei nisbaer li'il, we explained earlier, shagam oir hasovev yesh lo shaychus lo'olamis, that even the light, the oir hasovev, still there is a connection to the world. Elo, it's not that it's not connected. She'inyonom shel ha'olamis legabe oir hasovev. What are the worlds? What is the idea of the worlds relative to the oir hasovev? Who loy hametzias shalahem is not their being, creating them, making them into a metzias, like by the oir hamemale rak. The only thing is ze shal yodom nishlam arotz. It is that through these worlds, to the creation of the worlds from Soviv, Hashem's will has been completed. Hashem wants there to be world, and they complete the creation, creates, fulfills, and completes the will of Hashem. Similar to this is also in the service of Asay Tov. The mikivon sheha'avodah the va'asei tov hu, since the work, the service Asay Tov hu pnei shehu oyev es Hashem oyev es Havaya v'chofetz l'dovka boy. Since why Asay Tov means he loves Hashem and he wants to connect to Hashem. He's not afraid of Hashem, not yira, but it's a love, and he wants to connect to Hashem. So since it's still, just like by the Eir HaSovev, it's still connected to the world, but not for the world, but to fulfill Hashem's will. The same thing is in Avodah. When he does it, he's still doing it not for himself. He's doing it because he loves Hashem. He wants to connect to Hashem. Hare Avedose es Hashem keshura imitziuse shel ha'odom. So the service to Hashem is tied to the existence of the person. Ha'ava v'ratzon sheloi. His love, his will. He loves Hashem. He wants Hashem. He wants to connect to Hashem. So it's still connected to the person. However, the love to Hashem is in such a way that this, the love of Hashem, that becomes all what he wants, all his matter. That's all what the person is. It's not like the love is something else. He wants a little bit himself. He wants a little bit Hashem. No, that becomes all that he wants is Hashem. And that's why he won't consider his limitations. He's not going to only do what he has, so what he needs to do. So Lochein Avedose as Hashem, he be'oifen she'enei mischashev im hagbolas hateva shaloi. So that's the way he serves Hashem, is that he does not consider the hagbolas hateva shaloi, his own limitation of his nature, he doesn't consider, because it's all about Hashem. So it's not about him, and therefore he doesn't take into consideration what he's comfortable with, what he's used to. He goes beyond. But then we have a higher level of connection, which is bechlal not connected to Metzius. This is the advantage in the avodah that follows. Sur meira v'asei tov b'kisholim v'ratfeyu. The avodah, the maila in the avodah b'kisholim shu esek haTorah, which is the occupation of Torah, al ha'avodah the v'asei tov, over and greater than the avodah v'asei tov. Ki haTorah nikras Moshel HaKadmoni. Torah is the Moshel of the earliest one. When we say Moshel HaKadmoni, we're talking about the Atzmus. We're talking about the essence of Hashem. Because he is the Kadmon, the very first. She Moshel Ulevush. Torah becomes the parable and the garment Lebchinas kadmoinoi shel olam, to the level of kadmon shel olam, level of atzmus ein sof. Hainu la'atzmus ein sof she'einoi begeder omim klal, which is not at all in the definitions of the world. This is only in the atzmus ein sof. V'lachein, and therefore, because it's not like the level of say Tov, which is the level of Sevav Kol Almin. Sevav Kol Almin is still connected to the world. But here, this is Kadmoina Shaloilam, which is for Atzmus Ein Sof. That's in Torah. Sheina Begeder Almin Klal. It's not at all in the limitations of the world. It's higher Bechlal. Belochein habitl be'esek haTorah hu bitl betachlis. And that's why the subjugation of occupation in Torah, when you learn Torah, it's total self-effacement. You are totally not a Metzias. It's not like by the Ava where you love or the you chafetz, you want to connect. You're not Metzias. You're totally non-entity. As explained in Torah, Achiluk bein Torah lemitzvahs. The difference between Torah and mitzvahs. Shebekiyum ha-mitzvahs, that when you do mitzvahs, this is the general chiluk between Torah and mitzvahs. You do mitzvahs, ha'odam ha-mekayim es ha-mitzvahs, u'k'may eved ha-mekayim mitzvahs ha-melech. A person that fulfills the mitzvahs is like a servant who fulfills the command of the king. So you have a servant and you have a king. You're two separate people. The king is the boss. You're the servant. You do what the king wants. The Metzias ha'eved eino Metzias ha'odem. The entity, the existence of this slave is not the existence of the odin. You are, the Eved is a separate entity. Even when the person's fulfillment of mitzvahs comes out of love of delight, which means the love of delight is the highest level of love that can possibly be. Even at that level of love, Afal Pikein Yesh Mi Shoyev, you're still an entity. You are an entity that loves Hashem, two separate. That's when we talk about mitzvahs. Mashen came believe Mudat Torah, as opposed to when you study Torah, Harehu Hamelech Atzmei, then you are the king itself. Asher Esek HaTorah Hu Bebitl. When you learn, occupy yourself in Torah with bittul, with self-education. Azai then v'osim dvorai b'fich. I put my words in your mouth. When you are speaking words of Torah, that's Hashem speaking those words. So you've united. There's no you and Hashem, but that's Hashem speaking through you. Dvorai mamish. That's my words mamish. Hainu shaloi ha'odom hu ha'medaber. So it's not the person speaking. Ki'im Shadvar Havaye Zu Halocha, but it is the word Hashem the Halocha. He Amidaberes Meter Geroine. That speaks from your throat. So that's the advantage of Torah and mitzvahs. That's the level of the Baki Sholem, which is the higher level than the Sur Merava Seitoy. So we have basically what he spoke over here is the three levels. The level of Shem Havaya Elikim, which is Memalukul Almim, which is the level of Sur Meira. We spoke about then we have the level of Havaya, which is higher than Hishtalshalus, which is the source for Asay Toiv. And then we have Moshel HaKadmoini, we have the Torah, the Baki Sholem, V'Retfeyu, which is the level of Torah, which is total bittul union with Hashem. And the Rebbe is going to say now that the same three levels is also in the level of Avas Hashem. Was you have like this, we have b'chol levavcha, u'b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol ma'idecha. It corresponds to these three levels. B'chol levavcha is like Sur Meira, is the level from Shem Elikim. B'chol nafshecha, it's like Asay Toiv, which is the level of the Shem Havaya. And b'chol me'idecha, that's the level of Atzmos, the Mashal HaKadmoini. That's like the level of Baki Sholem. Let's look inside. Dalet. Minei al derech zehu beha'avoido de'avas Hashem. Similarly, is in the service of the love of Hashem. Sheyesh bo gimel madreges. We have here 3 levels, 3 steps in the love of Hashem. We have b'chol levavcha, all your heart. Then you have b'chol nafshecha, all your soul, uv'chol me'idecha, and all your being. It's explained in many places. Sha'avo, the b'chol levavcha. How do you get to the love? Should be with all your heart. He al yidei ha'hizboinenus be'oid ha'eliki hamislabish benivroim lahachayosom. When you reflect on the godly light, which dresses up in the created being to vitalize them, that's the mamali. When you reflect, how do you come to b'chol levavcha? How do you love Hashem with all your heart? By meditating, reflecting on the godly light that dresses up in the nivroim to vitalize them. The bechlolus who oir hamamali, generally that's the light of mamali. The al yidei shem mizboinim, that through the reflection, shachayis shall kol davar hu elikus, that the energy, the vitality of everything is godliness. So he reflects on that, and really everything is godly. So even though it seems to us magashmius, but it's really godly. So he's reflecting on the memalikulam, on the creation of the world. And this reflection, and his reflection is in a way, so that this is also understood. Even your animal soul, intellect, understands that. In other words, you explain it so well to yourself that everything is not the gashmi, the ruchni, that even your animal soul understands it, your seichel understands it. What is this going to lead to? Al yidei ze yovoy la'avo eshavaya b'chol levavcha. This will lead you to loving as Hashem. And he says, b'chol levavcha. Chol levavcha means b'shnei yetzerecha, with both of your inclinations, which basically means the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, because you have reflected and you understood it. That's the level of B'chol Levavcha. How do we get to this next, the higher level, to the level of loving B'chol Nafshecha with all your soul? He al yidei ha'hizboinenus, that comes, that you reflect that, hey, what we see in this world, that's just the memalid is much higher than that. When you reflect that this light that vitalizes the world, hu ha'ora bilvad, that is only a ray. And this ray is not compared at all to the Oir Sof. The B'chlolus Oir HaSoive, which generally is Soive, Al Yidei Ze Yovei Laha'ava, the B'chol Nafshecha. Then he will come to the love of B'chol Nafshecha, which means the reflection and the realization that what creates the world is just a ray from the real light. But Hashem himself is Soivev. That will lead you to come to the love of Chol Nafshecha, which means that his love to Hashem is in the way he's ready to give away his soul to Hashem, which means that's the interpretation of Chol Nafshecha. Even if it takes your nefesh, which means Mesiras Nefesh, you're ready. Because why? Because you realize that the Oir Havai is much more than the world is, but you see there is the Oir HaSoivev, and that gives you the love. You love Hashem so much, even if it will cost you your life, you'll still connect to Hashem. Okay, now if you're ready to give you up your life, B'chol Nafshecha. So what does B'chol Me'idecha add? What is it then? What do we come to B'chol Me'idecha? But va'ava, the B'chol Me'idecha, who he ali de gilu atzmus ein sof. Here we're talking about the save of Kol Almin. but that is through the revelation of the Atzmus Ein Sof she'ene begeder olmin klal, that it's not at all in the definition of the world. She'al yidei gilui zeh, through this revelation, ha'ava hi lemailo mimedida v'hagabola, then this love is beyond any measure, any limitation, because there is a revelation of Atzmus. There is no definitions over there. There's no limitations. There's no measure. You love Hashem without any measure. So what's the difference of B'chol Nafshecha, which is Mesiras Nefesh, you're ready to give up your life, and this higher level of B'chol Meidecha, Gilu Ha'atzmus, which gives you a love without any measure or limitation. V'hagam, shagam ha'ava de b'chol nafshecha, even the lower level of ava, of b'chol nafshecha, he afilu noiteles nafshecha, that is already, we're saying, even if he takes your life, v'inyan ha'mesiras nefesh u'lemaylo mimedid v'agbola. And for a person, the idea, the concept of giving away your life is that it's beyond any measure and limitation. If you're measured and you're limited in your avodah, you don't give up your life. There's a measure up to giving you up your life. But the fact that we're saying b'chol nafshecha, you give up your life, means that it's beyond any measure and limitation. So what's the difference? So he says like this: Hine hamesiras nefesh shebeha'ava de b'chol nafshecha. The mesiras nefesh, which is in the love of b'chol nafshecha, shu b'klolus b'bchinas chaya. That is the level of chaya. You have the nefesh, ruach, and neshama, and then you have the level of chaya and yichida. The level of b'chol nafshecha, generally, that's the level of chaya of your neshama. He be'oifen shehu roitze limseres nafshei. That's in a way you want to give yourself up. Because of your reflection in the Seif of Kol Almim, you want to give up your life for Hashem. The Yisayim Mizu. And it's even more than just a want. It's almost like a reason, a want which is based on a reason. Sometimes we say that the rotzen is just a want. It's not, there's no reason. But this rotzen to give up your life, b'chol nafshecha, is almost like a rotzen which is based on reason. Why? Because mitzad zeh shekol ha'inyonim heim be'ein haroich legabe Eir Sof, because all matters have no comparison to Eir Sof. So you need to love Hashem, because if it costs you your life, nothing is compared, and therefore you're ready to give up your life. So you want to give up your life. So there's a rationale almost to wanting to mesiras nefesh. That is b'chol nafshecha, chaya. But ba'ava de b'chol meidecha, the ava b'chol meidecha, shehi b'chlolus b'chinas yichida, which generally that's the level of yichida. Hiloi mitzad harotzen shaloi. That is not based on his rotzen. It's not, he wants mesiras nefesh. Elo mipnei she'ene yochel lihipored chaz v'sholei machdus yizborech. It is because he is not able to separate himself, God forbid, from Hashem, his blessed oneness. Doesn't want mesiras nefesh. He just can't be apart, separate from Hashem. Not that he wants to connect, but he just can't be separate. The mesiras nefesh ba'ofen zeh, that kind of mesiras nefesh, the b'chol meidecha hu amitis inyan habitl. That is the true level of subjugation, like we talked before about Torah. That becomes the word of Hashem. That's in here. This is the true idea of subjugation. Mikivon sham mesiras nefesh, since the reason you are self-sacrificing, hiloi mitzad harotzen. Metzias Shaloi. It's not because you want. Want means your Metzias. I want to give up my life for Hashem, but it's still your Metzias that wants it. But in the case of B'chol Moedecha, is El Mitzad Elikus. It's because of Hashem. You can't be separated from Hashem, not because of your want. Similar to what we explained before, the advantage of the service of Baki Sholem, the words of Torah, over the avodah of Asay Toiv, similarly, the avodah of B'chol Moedecha is greater than the avodah of B'chol Nafshecha. Whole Nafshecha is still created, connected to being a Metzias, and the avodah of B'chol Moedecha is all together giving up your Metzias. V'yesh loymar, the Rebbe explains now, because this is such a high level of B'chol Moedecha, and maybe not everybody can get to that level of total bittul. And that's why it's not mentioned in the second parsha, even though in the first parsha we said B'chol levavcha, B'chol nafshecha, B'chol moedecha. But in the second parsha it says B'chol levavcha, B'chol nafshechem. It doesn't say B'chol moedchem. Because the regular level of Mesiras Nefesh, that's possible. But to be in a way of B'chol moedchem totally, it's not possible. This is the reason Shebe Parsha Shniya de Kriya Shema Nema rak b'chol levavchem u'b'chol nafshechem. Doesn't say b'chol meidchem. Ki ha'ava de b'chol me'idecha. Because this love that comes b'chol me'idecha, li yoiso, bo, that comes al yidei hagilui de'erin sof she'ena begeder omim klal. That comes through the revelation of the Ein Sof, which is at all not in the boundaries of the world. This is not for everyone. Not everyone can get there. What is expected from each one and one? The love that comes because of reflection, the memale, and the light that soivev, that's expected from everyone. And the same thing is as it relates to the three matters. The sur meira, ba'asei toiv, u'bakisholim. So you have stay away from ba'asei toiv, bakisholim. Says shebishkama v'kama mekoimis. In many places, niskiru rak shnei hoinyonim. Over there we just talk about two ideas, the sur meira, ba'asei toiv. We don't say the bakisholim. Why don't we say the bakisholim? Because in some places we can't. That's too a high madrege. So b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha is in both parshas, but b'chol moedecha is not in the second parsha because that may be beyond the level that can be expected from a person. Okay, we'll leave it over here. Mamshich be'ezrat Hashem.
Okay, see you later.